The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, carried by a small drone ship that dropped out of hyperspace near Earth's orbital defense grid. It was wrapped in the formal seals of the Galactic Council, 12 symbols representing 12 species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. The message was short. Humanity was summoned to Vethera Prime to answer for crimes against the Venoxy hegemony. They had 30 days to send a delegation. Failure to appear would be considered an act of war. Admiral Park, Do-Yun, read the message 3 times in his office, overlooking the Pacific Fleet yards. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face marked by decades of service. He had fought in the border wars when humanity first pushed into deep space. He had watched friends die on distant moons. He had seen what the galaxy thought of his species. To them, humans were insects. Useful for labor, good for trade, but never equals. Never respected. He passed the tablet to Captain Yoon Jisoo, who stood at attention near his desk. She was 41, tall and lean, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had served under Do-Yun for 15 years. She knew his moods better than anyone. Juve read the message, and her jaw tightened. The charges are false. Our mining operations never crossed into hegemony space. I reviewed the territorial maps myself last month. Of course they're false, Do-Yun said. He walked to the window and looked out at the shipyards below. Thousands of workers move between construction platforms, welding, wiring, building. And in the center of it all, hidden beneath massive orbital shrouds, something enormous was taking shape. Something the galaxy did not know about. This isn't about justice. The hegemony wants our outer colonies. They've wanted them for 50 years. This is their excuse to take them. Then what do we do? Jisoo asked. If we refuse to appear, they'll claim we admitted guilt. If we go, they'll use their puppet court to condemn us anyway. Do-Han was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a rare and dangerous expression. We go, but we don't go alone. He picked up his communicator and dialed a secure channel. Get me Ambassador Kang, and tell the shipyard crews to accelerate the final construction phase. I want the bike due ready in 28 days. On the other side of Earth, Ambassador Kang Minho received the Admiral's call in his apartment in New Seoul. He was 55. A man who had spent his entire adult life talking to aliens who looked at him like he was dirt beneath their feet. He had smiled through insults. He had bowed when they demanded it. He had played the role of the humble human, the harmless human, because that was what kept his people safe. But he was tired. So very tired of pretending. You want me to lead the delegation, Minho said, watching the rain fall outside his window. You're the best we have. Do-Hyun's voice crackled through the speaker. No one knows the council better than you. No one understands their laws, their politics, their weaknesses. And what exactly am I supposed to do when they condemn us anyway? Make a speech about fairness? Appeal to their better nature? Minho laughed bitterly. They don't have better natures, Admiral. They see us as animals. I'm not asking you to change their minds, Do-Yun said. I'm asking you to keep them talking. Buy me time. Keep them focused on you while I prepare something they won't expect. Minho frowned. What are you planning? Trust me, Ambassador. Just keep them talking. The line went dead. Minho stared at the communicator for a long moment, then sighed and began packing his bags. His aide arrived an hour later. Cho Yoonji was 32, small and quiet, with gentle features that made people underestimate her constantly. This was a mistake. Behind those soft eyes was a mind that had memorized every law, treaty, and regulation the Galactic Council had ever produced. She could recite clauses in 6 alien languages. She had found loopholes that no one else could see. I heard we're going to Vethera Prime, Yoonji said, setting down her travel case. You don't have to come, Minho told her. This mission is likely to end badly. With respect, sir, that's exactly why I should come. She smiled slightly. Someone needs to keep you from starting a war. Minho almost laughed. I think that ship may have already sailed. They departed 3 days later aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony, a small ship designed for comfort rather than combat. It carried no weapons, only communication arrays and comfortable quarters. The galaxy watched it leave Earth's orbit, a tiny speck of metal carrying humanity's last hope for peace. On Vethera Prime, High Arbiter Thelos received reports of the human delegation's departure. He was a Venoxy, a tall creature with gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes like black pools. He had ruled the hegemony's judicial branch for 40 years. He had crushed rebellions, silenced dissent, and expanded his species' territory across 100 star systems. Humans, he thought, were barely worth his attention. They had no fleet, no allies, no power. They would come to his station, bow before his court, and surrender their colonies without a fight. It was how things always worked. The strong took from the weak. The galaxy had operated this way for millennia. Shall the first prepare the defense forces? His aide asked out the loss, waved a dismissive hand. For what? A single diplomatic ship? Don't waste resources on such a pathetic display. Let them come. Let them grovel. It will be over in a day. Back on Earth, Admiral Doyen stood in the primary construction bay of the Pacific shipyards. The orbital shrouds had been pulled back, revealing what lay beneath. The Baekdu was 2 kilometers long. Its hull was black steel, layered with armor plating that had taken 20 years to develop. Its weapon batteries could crack moons. Its engines could outrun anything in the known galaxy. It was the product of 40 years of secret research, hidden budgets, and the combined genius of humanity's greatest engineers. Captain Jisoo stood beside the Admiral, staring up at the massive vessel. She's beautiful, she whispered. She's a warning, Do-hyun corrected. One the galaxy is about to receive. He turned to the construction chief. How long until she's ready? 26 days, sir. Maybe 25 if we push the crews. Push them. And start loading the ammunition. Full combat loadout. Jisoo glanced at him. You're really going to do this? You're going to take a warship to a diplomatic summit. They summoned us to negotiate, Do-hyun said, his eyes never leaving the Baekdu. I'm just bringing leverage. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars. The Harmony continued its journey toward Vethera Prime. Ambassador Minho sat in his quarters, reviewing files on the council members, searching for any advantage. Yoonji worked beside him, marking passages in ancient treaties that might be useful. Neither of them knew what was coming. Neither of them knew that in 26 days, the galaxy would learn to fear a species it had always dismissed. The game had begun, and humanity was finally ready to play. The council chamber of Vethora Prime was designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose 200 meters above the floor, covered in crystals that glowed with soft blue light. 12 thrones circled the room, each one raised on a platform 15 meters high. The representatives of the 12 ruling species sat upon these thrones, looking down at whoever stood in the center pit below. Ambassador Kang Minho stood in that pit now, his aide Cho Yoonji beside him. They wore formal Earth attire, dark suits that seemed plain compared to the elaborate robes and armor of the council members. Guards lined the walls, hundreds of soldiers from a dozen different species, all armed, all watching. Minho kept his face calm. He had stood in this chamber before, many times. He knew the game. Show no fear. Show no anger. Give them nothing to use against you. High Arbiter Thelos rose from his throne, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of authority. His voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by hidden speakers. The Galactic Council of 12 Species is now in session. We are gathered to hear charges against the human species, brought by the Venoxy hegemony. Ambassador Kang, you have been summoned to answer these charges. Do you understand the gravity of this proceeding? Minho bowed slightly. I understand, High Arbiter. Then let us begin. Thalos pressed a control panel on his throne, and holographic images appeared in the air above the pit. Star charts, mining records, ship movements. The hegemony charges that human vessels have repeatedly violated our territorial boundaries. That human mining operations have stolen resources from hegemony space. That human merchants have illegally undercut hegemony trade routes, damaging our economy. Minho watched the images cycle through. He had seen all of this data before. He knew exactly how false it was. The evidence is clear, Thalos continued. The humans have broken the Neutral Zone Treaty. They have shown disrespect for hegemony sovereignty. They must face consequences. The other council members murmured in agreement. Some of them were allies of the hegemony, bound by trade deals and military pacts. Others simply did not care about humanity's fate. A few looked bored, as if this trial was a waste of their time. Only one council member remained silent. Varath of the Keth Dominion, a massive reptilian creature with scales the color of dried blood. He watched Minho with cold, calculating eyes. The Keth were not friends of the hegemony, but they were not friends of humanity either. They were opportunists, always looking for advantage. Thalos finished his presentation and spread his arms again. Ambassador Kang, how does humanity respond to these charges? Minho stepped forward. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times in his mind. High Arbiter, honored council members, I thank you for this opportunity to speak. I have reviewed the evidence presented by the hegemony, and I must respectfully disagree with their conclusions. He pulled out his own tablet and projected counter-images into the air. Different star charts. Different records. Different data. These are the actual territorial boundaries established by the Neutral Zone Treaty, signed by all 12 council species 300 years ago. As you can see, the mining operations in question took place in zones clearly marked as neutral territory. Not hegemony space. Not human space. Neutral. Some council members leaned forward, interested despite themselves. The data was compelling. Furthermore, Minho continued, the trade routes referenced by the hegemony were open to all species by Council Resolution 7742, passed 60 years ago. Human merchants have operated within the legal framework established by this very body. We have broken no laws. Thalos's black eyes narrowed. You dare question the integrity of hegemony records? I question nothing, Minho said smoothly. I simply present the truth. The coordinates in the hegemony's evidence do not match the coordinates in the official council archives. Either the archives are wrong, or the evidence is. Silence fell over the chamber. Yunji watched the council members carefully, noting their reactions. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. Varath of the Keth Dominion actually smiled, a thin, reptilian expression that could mean anything. Thalos descended from his throne, his forearms clenched at his sides. He walked to the edge of the pit and stared down at Minho with undisguised contempt. You think you are clever, human. You think your words and your data will save you. But you fail to understand something important. He gestured at the chamber, at the thrones, at the guards. This is not a court of truth. This is a court of power. And you have none. Minho felt his heart sink, but he kept his face steady. High Arbiter, the Galactic Council was founded on principles of fairness and justice. If those principles mean nothing, then what is the point of this institution? The point, Thalos said coldly, is to maintain order. And order requires that smaller species know their place. He turned to the other council members. I call for a vote. The Venoxy hegemony demands that humanity withdraw from all disputed systems within 30 standard rotations. Those who agree, speak now. 7 hands rose. 7 votes in favor of the hegemony's demands. 3 abstained. 2 voted against, though their objections were quiet and half-hearted. Thalos smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The motion carries. Humanity will withdraw or face military correction. Minho stood very still. Beside him, Yunji's hands trembled slightly, though her face remained calm. High Arbiter, Minho said, his voice barely above a whisper. I request a recess to consult with my government. Thalos waved a dismissive hand. You have 1 rotation. Use it to prepare your surrender. The guards escorted Minho and Yunji to their assigned quarters, a small suite on the lower levels of the station. The rooms were comfortable, but clearly designed to remind visitors of their inferior status. The windows looked out at garbage processors and maintenance corridors, not the beautiful crystal gardens that visitors from important species enjoyed. Minho sat heavily on the bed and stared at the floor. Well, that went about as well as expected. Yunji moved to the communication terminal and activated the secure channel to Earth. We should contact the Admiral and tell him what? That we failed? That the Council voted against us without even pretending to consider the evidence. We tell him the truth, Yunji said firmly. He asked us to buy time. We bought what we could. Admiral Dohyun's face appeared on the screen moments later. He looked tired but focused. Behind him, Minho could see the bridge of a ship, officers moving at their stations. Ambassador, report. Minho explained the tribunal, the vote, the deadline. He did not try to soften the news. There was no point. Dohyun listened without interrupting. When Minho finished, the Admiral nodded slowly. You did well, he said. Better than I expected. We lost, Minho said bitterly. You bought me time. That's what I needed. Dohyun leaned toward the camera. Listen to me carefully, Ambassador. Tomorrow, when the Council reconvenes, I want you to reject their demands. All of them. No surrender. No withdrawal. Nothing. Minho stared at the screen. Admiral, if we do that, they'll declare war. Let them try. Dohyun's smile was cold and sharp. Just trust me. Stand your ground tomorrow. Help is on the way. The channel closed. Minho and Yunji sat in silence for a long moment. What is he planning? Yunji asked quietly. Minho shook his head. I don't know. But whatever it is, I think the galaxy is about to learn something important about humanity. What's that? Minho looked out the window at the stars beyond. That we don't surrender, ever. Outside the station, the hegemony fleet patrolled in lazy circles, confident in their superiority. They had no idea what was coming. No one did. The morning cycle on Vithora Prime began with artificial sunlight flooding through the station's crystal walls. Ambassador Kang Minho had not slept. He had spent the entire night reviewing files, searching for any legal argument that might help. Beside him, Sho Yunji had done the same, her eyes red from exhaustion, but her mind sharp as ever. Now they walked through the corridors toward the council chamber, guards flanking them on all sides. Other species passed by, most of them ignoring the humans entirely. A few glanced at them with curiosity or contempt. One young Venoxy actually spit on the floor as they passed. Minho kept walking. He had learned long ago not to react to such things. Are you ready? Yunji whispered. No, Minho admitted. But I'm going to do this anyway. The council chamber was even more crowded than before. Word had spread that humanity would deliver its final answer today. Representatives from dozens of minor species filled the observation galleries, eager to watch the show. They expected to see humans grovel. They expected surrender. They were about to be disappointed, High Arbiter Thelos sat upon his throne, his forearms folded across his chest. His black eyes tracked Minho as the ambassador walked to the center pit. Ambassador Kang, you have had your recess. You have consulted with your government. Now give us your answer. Will humanity accept the Council's judgment and withdraw from the disputed systems? Minho took a deep breath. His heart was pounding, but his voice came out steady. No. The word echoed through the chamber. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the murmuring began, rising like a tide. Shock, anger, disbelief. Delos leaned forward on his throne. What did you say? I said no. Minho raised his chin, meeting the High Arbiter's gaze directly. The United Earth government rejects all charges. We will not withdraw from systems that are rightfully ours. Furthermore, we demand reparations for the hegemony's illegal blockade of our trade routes, which has cost human merchants billions in lost revenue over the past decade. The murmuring became shouting. Council members rose from their thrones, voices overlapping in outrage. Only Vorath of the Keth Dominion remained seated, watching with that thin reptilian smile. Tylos raised his hands for silence. It took nearly a minute for the chamber to quiet. You understand what you are saying? He asked, his voice dangerously soft. You are rejecting the judgment of the Galactic Council. You are inviting war. I am stating facts, Minho replied. Your judgment was based on false evidence. Your demands are illegal under the very treaties this council created. If there is war, it will be because the hegemony chose aggression over justice. Talos stood, his full height rising 3 meters above the floor. Enough. Humanity has made its choice. The Venoxy hegemony hereby declares a state of war against the human species. Our fleets will move against your colonies within the hour. Your pathetic worlds will burn, and your people will learn what it means to defy their betters. He turned to address the chamber. Let this be a lesson to all who would. He never finished the sentence. Every light in the station flickered. Alarms began to wail, their harsh tones cutting through the noise of the crowd. Council members grabbed their communication devices, receiving frantic reports from their ships. Dallas's face went pale. What is happening? The answer came from the station's emergency broadcast system, a voice speaking in calm, measured tones. Attention Vithora Prime. This is Admiral Park Do-han of the United Earth Navy. We are in position. Minho closed his eyes for a moment. So this was the Admiral's plan. The main display screen in the council chamber flickered to life, showing a view of space outside the station. The hegemony fleet was visible, dozens of warships arranged in a defensive formation. And beyond them, emerging from a fold space rupture, was something impossible. The Baekdu materialized like a nightmare given form. 2 kilometers of black steel, bristling with weapon batteries that glowed with contained energy. It was larger than any warship in the known galaxy. It was larger than some space stations. And it hung in the void with the quiet confidence of a predator that knew it had no natural enemies. The chamber erupted into chaos. Council members screamed orders into their communicators. The hegemony fleet scrambled to reposition, their formation breaking apart in panic. On the observation galleries, the minor species representatives stared in shock. Some of them had never seen a human before today. None of them had imagined humans could build something like this. Delos grabbed his command console with all 4 hands. Fire! Fire on that vessel immediately! But his fleet commanders hesitated. Their sensors were feeding them data that made no sense. The human ship's weapon signatures were off the charts. Its armor plating was composed of materials they couldn't identify. Engaging it would not be a battle. It would be mass suicide. Admiral Do-hyun's voice continued through the broadcast system, calm and steady. High Arbiter Thalos, you summoned humanity to negotiate. We are here to negotiate. However, I feel that the terms of our discussion should be adjusted. The Baekdu's forward batteries rotated slowly, their targeting systems locking onto the Hegemony flagship. Your fleet has 30 seconds to power down weapons and stand aside. If they do not comply, I will demonstrate what happens when you threaten human territory. On the bridge of the Baekdu, Captain Yoon Jisoo monitored the tactical display with cold precision. Every Hegemony ship was marked, targeted, analyzed. She knew exactly how long it would take to destroy them all. 20 seconds, she announced. Admiral Do-yoon stood at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He had waited 40 years for this moment. 40 years of planning, building, hiding. 40 years of watching his species be mocked and exploited by creatures who thought themselves superior. Today, that ended. 15 seconds, Jisoo said. Lieutenant Han Soo-jing, the young weapons officer, looked up from her console. Admiral, the Hegemony flagship is charging main batteries. Let them, Do-hyun replied. If they want to die, I won't stop them. 10 seconds. In the council chamber, Minho watched the display screen with a mixture of awe and terror. He had known the Admiral was planning something, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. Eunji grabbed his arm. Is this real? She whispered. Did we really build that? Apparently so. 5 seconds. The Hegemony fleet stopped moving. One by one, their weapon systems powered down. Their shields remained active, but their guns went silent. They had chosen survival. Do-yoon allowed himself a small smile. Wise decision. Now, High Arbiter, shall we return to negotiations? I believe the ambassador was making some excellent points about territorial boundaries. Thelus stood frozen at his throne, staring at the display screen. His carefully constructed plan had collapsed in an instant. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to surrender. This was not how things were supposed to happen. But the Baekdu hung in space outside his station. Its weapons pointed at his fleet, and there was nothing he could do about it. Ambassador Minho stepped forward, his confidence renewed. High Arbiter, I believe we have much to discuss. Shall we continue? The galaxy had just changed, and everyone in that chamber knew it. The council chamber had fallen into complete disorder. Representatives shouted at each other across the vast space. Aides rushed back and forth with tablets and communicators. Guards stood uncertainly at their posts, unsure whether they should be protecting the council or preparing to evacuate. High Arbiter Thelus remained at his throne, his four hands gripping the armrests so tightly that the metal began to bend. His black eyes never left the display screen, where the Baekdu continued its slow, menacing orbit around the station. This is impossible, he muttered. The humans do not have this technology. They cannot have it. Our intelligence reports. Your intelligence reports were wrong, Vorath of the Keth Dominion said, his reptilian voice cutting through the noise. He had not moved from his throne during the chaos. He seemed almost amused by the situation. It appears the humans have been busy while we were not watching. Thelus turned to face the other council members. We must respond. We cannot allow this insult to stand. If our combined fleets attack together, you attack first, interrupted Representative Melis of the Vorn Collective. The crystalline being's facets caught the light as they spoke, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. The Vorn have no quarrel with humanity. We will not sacrifice our ships for hegemony pride. Similar murmurs spread across the chamber. The hegemony had allies, yes, but those alliances were built on advantage, not loyalty. None of the other species were willing to throw away their fleets against an unknown enemy, just to save Thelus from embarrassment. Cowards, Thelus hissed. All of you, cowards. Ambassador Minho watched this exchange with growing hope. The coalition against humanity was crumbling faster than he had dared to imagine. But he knew better than to celebrate too soon. Thalos was cornered, and cornered creatures were dangerous. He leaned toward Unji and whispered, "Find me something. Some law, some precedent. Something that forces them to deal with us fairly." Unji nodded and began scrolling through her tablet, her fingers flying across the screen. On the Baekdu, Admiral Do-yoon monitored the situation through the station's compromised communication channels. Captain Jisoo stood beside him, her expression carefully neutral. "The Council is fragmenting," she observed. "The hegemony is losing support." "Good. The Thalos won't give up easily. He spent his whole life building power through intimidation. He doesn't know any other way." Do-hyun turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the council chamber. Audio and visual." His image appeared on the chamber's main display, replacing the tactical view of his ship. The noise in the chamber died as everyone turned to look. "Council members," Do-hyun said, his voice filling the space. "I want to be clear about something. Humanity did not come here seeking war. We came seeking justice. We came to defend ourselves against false accusations and illegal demands." He paused, letting the words sink in. "The Baekdu is not a weapon of conquest. It is a deterrent. A reminder that humanity will not be bullied, exploited, or destroyed simply because others consider us weak. We have been part of galactic civilization for 300 years. We have followed your laws, respected your treaties, and contributed to your economy. And in return, we have been treated like animals." Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their thrones. "That ends today," Do-hyun continued. "From this moment forward, humanity demands to be treated as equals. Not because we are asking nicely, because we have earned it. And because the alternative is a war that none of you will win." Delos slammed his fist against his throne. "You threaten us? One ship against the combined might of the Galactic Council?" "One ship for now," Do-hyun replied calmly. "But the Baekdu is only the first. There are others being built. And unlike your species, High Arbiter, we learn quickly. In 10 years, we will have a fleet that can match any power in this galaxy. In 50 years, we will surpass you all. The only question is whether we do this as friends or as enemies." Yoonji suddenly grabbed Minho's arm, her eyes wide with excitement. She showed him something on her tablet, pointing at a specific passage. Minho read it quickly, then smiled. It was perfect. He stepped forward, raising his voice to be heard across the chamber. "High Arbiter Thalos, I invoke the right of challenge." The chamber went silent again. Even Do-hyun looked surprised on the display screen. Thalos stared at Minho with confusion. "What are you talking about?" Yoonji spoke up, her soft voice somehow carrying through the vast space. "Article 7 of the Founding Compact, signed by all 12 Council species when this body was first created. It states that when a species faces unjust aggression from a Council member, they may demand the aggressor prove their claims through trial by demonstration of strength." She projected the relevant text onto a secondary display screen. The words were ancient, written in a formal legal style that predated most current galactic languages. The challenged party must either withdraw their claims entirely, or prove their dominance through direct confrontation. If they withdraw, the matter is settled in favor of the challenger. If they choose confrontation and lose, they forfeit all territorial claims and must pay reparations. Thalos' face went pale. "That law has not been invoked in 8,000 years, because no one has been foolish enough to provoke it," Boris said, his thin smile widening. "But it has never been rescinded. It remains part of the Founding Compact. Even the High Arbiter cannot ignore it." Minho nodded. "The Vanoxi hegemony has made claims against humanity. We invoke our right to challenge those claims. Withdraw your demands or prove your dominance." He gestured at the display screen, where the Baekdu still loomed in the darkness of space. "Prove it against that." The silence stretched for a long, terrible moment. Every eye in the chamber turned to Thelos, waiting for his response. The High Arbiter was trapped. If he withdrew, he would lose face before the entire galaxy. The hegemony's reputation for strength would be shattered. But if he chose confrontation, his fleet would be destroyed. The Bektu's weapons were already locked onto his flagship. There would be no battle, only slaughter. On the Bektu, Lieutenant Han Sujin reported quietly, "Admiral, the hegemony fleet is powering weapons again." Dao nodded. Predictable. Talos would rather die than admit defeat. He opened a channel to the hegemony flagship. "Hegemony Commander, this is Admiral Doyon. I strongly advise you to stand down. I have no desire to destroy your fleet, but I will if forced." The response came from a tired-sounding Venoxi officer. "Admiral, I have my orders." "Then disobey them. Your High Arbiter is asking you to commit suicide for his pride. Your crews have families. Your ships represent decades of your species' work. Is one politician's ego worth all of that?" The channel went silent. On the tactical display, the hegemony weapons remained charged, but none of them fired. In the council chamber, Thalos screamed into his communicator, "Fire! I command you to fire!" But nothing happened. His fleet had chosen survival over loyalty. Thalos stood alone on his throne platform, abandoned by his allies, betrayed by his own commanders, facing an enemy he could not defeat. For the first time in his long life, he had no power. He had nothing. "This is not over," he said, his voice shaking with rage. "The hegemony will remember this insult." "We will. You will withdraw your claims," Minho interrupted firmly. "You will acknowledge that your evidence was fabricated, and you will agree to peace negotiations with the United Earth government. Those are your options, High Arbiter. There are no others." Theos looked around the chamber, searching for support, finding none. Even his own species representatives had turned away from him. Finally, slowly, he lowered his head. "The hegemony withdraws its claims." The words were quiet, barely audible, but they echoed through the chamber like thunder. It was over. Humanity had won. 3 days had passed since the confrontation. The council chamber had been closed for emergency repairs after several fights broke out among the delegates. The hegemony fleet had retreated to the edge of the system, their ships dark and quiet, their crews processing the humiliation they had witnessed. High Arbiter Thalos was gone. The hegemony government had recalled him within hours of his surrender, replacing him with a temporary representative who spoke very little and agreed to almost everything. Rumors said Thalos had been imprisoned. Other rumors said worse things. Ambassador Kan Minho did not care about the rumors. He had more important work to do. The formal treaty signing took place in a smaller chamber, one designed for actual negotiations rather than theatrical displays of power. Representatives from 8 species attended, including Vorath of the Keth Dominion, who had proven surprisingly helpful in drafting the final agreement. "You handled this well," Vorath said to Minho during a break in the proceedings. "Most species in your position would have demanded revenge. Territorial expansion. Punishment for your enemies." Minho shook his head. "We don't want conquest. We never did. We just want to live in peace, trade fairly, and be treated with basic dignity." Vorath made a sound that might have been a laugh. Such simple desires, and yet so rare in this galaxy. He leaned closer, his reptilian eyes studying the ambassador. "The Keth have watched humanity for a long time. We always knew you were different. Stronger than you appeared. More patient. More dangerous. We prefer to be friends rather than dangers. Perhaps. But remember this, Ambassador. The galaxy respects strength. Show weakness, and others will try what the hegemony tried. Stay strong, and you will have peace." He straightened up. The Keth Dominion looks forward to improved relations with Earth. There are many opportunities for species who understand each other. He walked away before Minho could respond. Eung appeared at Minho's side, a tablet in her hands. The final draft is ready. All parties have agreed to the terms. The hegemony withdraws all claims, pays reparations for the trade blockade, and recognizes human territorial sovereignty. And our status in the council? That will take longer. The other species need time to adjust. But several have already reached out about direct diplomatic relations. The Vorn Collective, the Keth, even the minor species from the observation galleries. She smiled slightly. Apparently, watching us stand up to the hegemony made quite an impression. Minho took the tablet and reviewed the document. It was everything they had hoped for and more. Not because they had asked nicely or argued cleverly, but because they had shown strength. The galaxy, it seemed, only understood one language. He signed the treaty with a digital stamp and handed the tablet back to Yoonji. Let's go home, on the bike too. Admiral Park Do-hyun watched the diplomatic vessel Harmony depart from Vithara Prime. The small ship looked even more fragile now, dwarfed by the warship that had changed everything. Captain Yoon Ji-soo stood beside him on the observation deck. The stars beyond the windows were cold and distant, unchanged by the events of the past few days. The galaxy was vast. Humanity was still small, but not as small as before. What happens now? Ji-soo asked. Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. We go back to Earth. We celebrate. We pretend everything is normal for a while. He turned away from the window. And then we get back to work. More ships? Many more. The Baekdu won't be enough forever. The hegemony will recover eventually. Other species will see us as a threat to be eliminated. We need to be ready. Ji-soo nodded. How long do you think we have? A decade, maybe two, before someone tries something. The galaxy doesn't change overnight. Do-hyun walked toward the bridge, his footsteps echoing in the corridor. But we've proven something important today. We've proven that humans can adapt, can plan, can build, can fight. We've been on this galactic stage for 300 years, and we've been holding back the whole time. Hiding our potential. Playing weak. He stopped at the bridge door and looked back at Ji-soo. That's over now. The universe knows what we are, what we can become. And they're afraid. A thin smile crossed his weathered face. Good. Let them be afraid. Fear keeps predators at bay. The bridge crew snapped to attention as Do-hyun entered. Lieutenant Han Soo-jin looked up from her weapons console, her young face tired but proud. Admiral, all systems ready for a hyperspace jump. Course plotted for Earth. Good work, Lieutenant. Good work, everyone. Do-hyun took his place at the command chair. Today, you made history. You showed the galaxy that humanity is not prey. Remember this feeling. We're gonna need it again. He gave the order, and the Baekdu slipped into fold space, leaving Vethra Prime behind. Ambassador Minho was already aboard the Harmony, watching the stars streak past through his cabin window. Yoonji sat across from him, finally allowing herself to relax after days of constant tension. Do you think it will last? She asked. The peace, I mean. Minho considered the question carefully. For a while. Maybe a generation. The hegemony won't forget what happened here. And there are other powers who will see us as a threat now that we've revealed our strength. Then why do it? Why reveal the Baekdu at all? We could have surrendered, kept our ship secret, built more in hiding. Because hiding only works for so long. Minho turned away from the window. Sooner or later, someone would have called our bluff. Would have pushed too hard. Would have destroyed our colonies and killed our people while we sat on our secret weapon. Afraid to use it. He stood up and paced the small cabin. The Admiral understood something that most people don't. Strength isn't just about having power. It's about being willing to use it. Being willing to show it. Being willing to say, "No, you cannot treat us this way, and here is why." We spent 300 years being polite, being careful, being small, and all it got us was contempt. Inji nodded slowly. So we changed the rules. We reminded them of the rules. The real rules. The ones that have governed survival since the first life forms crawled out of the first oceans on 1 billion different worlds. Minho sat back down, suddenly exhausted. Be strong enough to defend yourself, or be destroyed. That's the only law that matters. The Harmony continued its journey through fold space, carrying its passengers home. Back on Vuthra Prime, the council chamber was being prepared for future sessions. The 12 thrones still stood in their circle, unchanged by the events of the past few days. But everything else had shifted. Varth of the Keth Dominion sat alone in the empty chamber, studying the space where the human ambassador had stood and defied the most powerful species in the galaxy. He had lived for over 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched countless species try to climb the ladder of galactic power, most of them crushed before they reached the second rung. Humanity was different. He had known it from the first moment he encountered them, decades ago. There was something in their eyes, in their culture, in their history. A fire that other species lacked. A refusal to accept their place in the natural order. Today, that fire had burned bright enough for the whole galaxy to see. Interesting times ahead, he murmured to the empty chamber. Somewhere in the darkness between stars. The Baidu continued its journey home, carrying the men and women who had changed the course of galactic history. They were tired. They were proud. They were ready for whatever came next, because they were human, and humans never surrendered.